Hi everyone, it's Katie here and welcome to today's webinar, which is all about the Abridge Academy curriculum and how to get started. Today's webinar is mostly aimed at people who are brand new to the curriculum, but if you've been here a while, do feel free to pop any questions you have in the chat. And of course, if you're completely brand new, do check out the link in the description below to join the curriculum. You can get started for free and I'm going to be showing you all around everything today. So let me just check the tech and everything is all working. Do feel free to pop a message in the chat just to let me know that you can see and hear me okay. Tell us where you're tuning in from. It's great to get an idea of who's joining us. So let me just quickly check. Yes, it looks like it's working fine on YouTube, which is great, fantastic. I can see a few people starting to tune in, which is great to see. Okay, well, I'm just going to do a quick introduction. I'll talk a bit about myself, a bit about the curriculum, and then we'll jump into all of the details about how to get started, how to get your students using the curriculum, our trial class materials, onboarding your students, placing them at the correct level, top tips for using the interactive lesson slides in order to make the most of all the lessons and different resources and things that are available, and pretty much anything else that you need to know to get started. Now, if you are watching the replay, do feel free to watch all the way through, but you can also check out the curriculum tutorials which are on your dashboard from once you're logged into Abridge Academy. And there's also plenty of videos there to help you as well if you need a little bit more kind of step-by-step guidance on there too. So, as a quick introduction, my name is Katie. I've been teaching online and in school classrooms in the UK, China and Japan for over 10 years now. I founded Abridge Academy to help online ESL teachers like you save time and earn more by teaching more engaging online classes to your students. So Abridge Academy provides interactive, fun, engaging lesson materials that are structured, step-by-step kind of learning for online ESL students. And we've basically taken that textbook style concept, structured lessons that build upon each other with lots of different activities, but completely redesigned it for online learning with much more interactivity that takes advantage of all the tech that's available to us nowadays. The curriculum is aligned with the CEFR framework and the Cambridge Young Learner exams. So if your students are sort of progressing through the school system, which usually tends to follow the CEFR framework, or they're working towards those Cambridge exams, then it's a really great curriculum to check out. And of course, we all know that parents love teachers who the kids enjoy taking classes with. So we're here to try and make your lessons more fun and more engaging for them. As a teacher myself, I know how much time and effort and work is involved in planning and preparing lessons, sorting out homework and all that other stuff. So Abridge Academy is designed to help you save all that time on lesson planning while still being confident your students are going to make really steady progress without you having to you yourself put together such a complicated curriculum for them. It's also got all of the extra materials you need. So lesson previews, homework workbooks, flashcards, supplementary games and materials, everything you might need like that as well to support students outside of class time too. And that's all included in your Abridge Academy membership. So as I said, you should minimize your lesson planning and prep work outside of class time. There is a free tier to get you started for free. So if you're brand new and you haven't signed up yet, what are you waiting for? Do check out the link in the description. You can get started for free. That gives you access to the trial class materials, the placement test, everything you need to onboard your new students, as well as around 30 lessons across all of the different levels and courses that are available within Abridge Academy. So you can start using those with your students as well. The paid plan is currently just under $12 per month, so it's designed to be very affordable for online teachers with a nice convenient monthly subscription setup. So today, I know I'm talking at full speed, I should slow down. Today we're going to just go through simply how to navigate the website, how to find the materials and things you need, how to use all the interactive slide tools, how to place your students at the right level. I'm going to look at some example lessons and some top tips there. And there's plenty of opportunities for Q&A. If you've got any questions at all, please do pop them in the chat. I usually do these as like a workshop where you can join in live and with your video, and it's more of a small group sort of thing rather than a big public webinar. But we've been having some problems with the workshop video conferencing platform. So today we're doing it as this kind of YouTube live. But please do instead just pop your questions and things in the chat and I'll come to those as we go along. Okay, enough rambling for me. Let's get the lessons slides up there so you guys can have a quick look at where we are. Okay, so when you first log in to Abridge Academy, you should end up on this page here, which is your Abridge Academy dashboard. If you haven't ended up here, just go to the top left corner after logging in and click on the Abridge Academy logo, and that will take you to this dashboard. If you still haven't ended up here, you probably haven't logged in. So just log in first and then you'll end up here. It should say something like hello and then your name, and then you'll see the curriculum and things listed on the page. So this is where you can easily navigate to all the different parts of the curriculum. So firstly, we've got the step-by-step curriculum. This is your kind of textbook concept of lessons that gradually build upon each other, starting from complete beginner and going up to currently around pre-intermediate level. And if you scroll down a bit further, we've got the expansion courses, which are a selection of sort of more specialist lessons on a wide range of different topics. Some of them focus on very specific English skills, like reading or writing skills. Some of them link to like science-themed lessons. There are sort of specialist reading type classes. This one, like Space Explorers, I'm a great fan of. And what else we've got? Debating is really popular. The English news classes as well. So there's a lot of stuff there you can check out with lessons that are suitable for beginners through to advanced students, and focus on very specific skills. These can be particularly good if you are like looking for either extra practice that goes beyond the core curriculum, so you want to give your students a little bit more variety in your lessons, or if those students need extra support in one particular area, like maybe they really need help with some particular grammar topics. Have a look at the active grammar course, which has got some very specialist grammar lessons included. They can also be really fun lessons that are sort of themed on certain seasonal activities or celebrations. So, for example, Halloween is kind of coming up soon, and there's some fun Halloween themed lessons in there that you can do as like fun one-off classes. Those can also be great to do as free classes, like a group class to help promote your teaching, things like that as well. And also a lot of teachers use the Abridge Academy expansion courses for sort of advanced English classes on specific niches. So, for example, the debating one is really popular for this. That could be something you're offering independently. You could be teaching with an organisation such as OutSchool, where you create your own class listings. You want like a short course or series of classes. These kind of lessons can work really well for that as well. So that's the expansion courses. And you just go to the bottom of your dashboard, you just find some of the latest updates, new lessons that might have come up soon, and the latest posts, which is nice to have a browse and see what's coming up. Top tips and insights from different teachers and webinars and things like that. I do have a look on that section as well. Before we jump into more of the lesson details, I also want to quickly show you around the menu at the top of the screen. I know this sounds quite simple, but I always get asked these questions. Where do I find this? I'm like, oh, it's in the menu. So I'm going to very briefly show you that. In the header menu here, the first option is curriculum. Obviously, we've got our curriculum dashboard, which is the page we're currently on. There's also the curriculum tutorials page here. So everything we covered today, and also anything I might forget to cover today, you'll be able to find a tutorial video on somewhere here. So, for example, there's a video about how to navigate the curriculum, which is what I've just been showing you, and a bit more. We're going to go into more detail in a moment. And there's also advice here on like how to use the homework workbooks, or how to upgrade and change your account details, or manage your membership. All of that kind of information. There's these short tutorial videos that will help you out. So those are under curriculum and then curriculum tutorials. There's also here a levels guide. This gives you a bit of an overview of the Abridge Academy curriculum and the different levels, and how it compares to other curricula you might be more familiar with, or if your students have previously taken classes with a specific online ESL company. This is quite a nice table just to easily match those up. There's also a link here to some promotional materials. We've got some more guides that have just been added actually just the last few days. These are guides for parents. So if you've got a brand new student, or you're just moving them across to the Abridge Academy curriculum, and the parents want to know a bit more about, what is this curriculum? How is it organised? What's their child going to learn? We've got parent guides available in 8 different languages here. If the language you need is not listed, please do let us know. And particularly if you're a bilingual teacher yourself and you're willing to get involved and assist with translation, really appreciate anyone who can help support with that as well. All of these have been translated either by professional translators or native speakers of the languages to make sure that they are well written and help communicate your curriculum professionally to your students. There's also here some useful resources and graphics, like if you want to have a little screenshots or some little video clips you can include in your own marketing to save you a bit of time recording those things yourselves. You can use those from here. What else do we have? Platform guides. So if you are teaching with teaching platforms, you're all going to be using some kind of teaching platform, right? Have a look at these guides, which give you lots of detailed guidance on how to teach the Abridge Academy curriculum with those specific teaching platforms. Personally, I'm a big fan of Koala Go. So let's say I wanted to know how to use the Abridge Academy lessons on Koala Go. Here is a video tutorial. There's some information about the platform. parents' guides and information, screenshots, all kinds of details here. On that note as well, under teacher training, which is the next bit in the header menu, you're going to find some teaching platform tutorials. I'm just finishing off the Qualigo one that should be coming out in the next few days. So these are detailed tutorials where it shows you step by step. You see there's like a whole load of videos here. We've got 14 different videos here on ClassIn, for example, including like, where's it gone? Screen sharing, like how to use the Abridge Academy lessons in ClassIn, and also loads of other top tips on how to use that particular teaching platform. And you'll find those also for Zoom. And as I said, the Qualigo one is going to be coming out in the next few days. So these tutorial videos, if you want to know how to teach with the Abridge Academy curriculum on your chosen teaching platform, do check those out. Lots of useful insights and training there. There's also the webinar section, which is probably where you found out about today's workshop. So that's listed here. And there's also upcoming trial class bootcamp. Please do come along to this next week. It's totally free. Lots and lots of detailed guidance and support in terms of teaching the very best trial classes. That's coming up next week. And in the future, there's going to be more webinars and things listed on this webinars page. And you can see recordings of previous webinars if you want to check anything out that you've missed. There's also the blog section, which is lots of useful, interesting articles. If you've got some spare time, do have a read. Lots of great insights from teachers and their top tips on things like finding students, marketing strategies, teaching tips, how to use the Abridge Academy lessons in a range of different kind of contexts. Lots of useful stuff here, so do have a browse. Then we've got refer a friend section, does what it says on the tin. If you'd like to recommend Abridge Academy to your teacher friends, really appreciate your support. You can find your affiliate area here where you can refer Abridge Academy to your friends, and you get a nice little 50% commission on their first payment if you'd like to recommend us. So that's here. And then the last section is your account dashboard. Again, most of this is quite obvious. You can change your account details, you can manage your finances, changing the level, cancelling your membership, changing the payment details, viewing invoices of your previous payments for your tax records. All of that is here. Whew. Okay, that was a quick run through of the menus. So I hope that gave you a quick overview of where to find stuff on the Abridge Academy website. As I was mentioned earlier, if you're ever lost and you want to go back to this dashboard, just click on the Abridge Academy logo in the top left corner anytime and you'll end up back here. Okay, that was a very quick overview. The next bit to have a quick look at is, I've just realized this is covering up the page. I'm going to hide that caption there. Okay. The next thing to have a quick look at is some more detail into the lessons themselves. And I'm going to show you, firstly, how to place your students at the right level with our placement test and trial classes. And then we're going to look at one of the lessons and look at the interactive slide tools and some top tips in terms of how to teach with the Abridge Academy lessons in your interactive classes. So the first question I get asked a lot, like at least once a week by teachers, is how do I place my students at the correct level? So if you have a look at this placement test here, which you can find is the first thing listed on your dashboard, this placement test is designed to help you kind of place your students according to the Abridge Academy curriculum levels. It's also going to give you their CFR level. So if they also want to use like other textbooks and resources, or they want to match it up with how it aligns with their own school curriculum, the CFR framework is really helpful for that. And it will tell you what kind of exams they might be wanting to work towards if they are kind of looking to take certain exams to sort of support their learning. So this placement test, I'm going to go into a lot more detail on this actually in our trial class bootcamp next week. So please do come along to that. Lots of tips and strategies and advice on how to teach the very best trial classes. But this placement test is essentially designed to be the first 10 minutes or so of your first class with a student, whether that's a free trial class, a paid trial class, or just a first class. Or if you've got a student who you've been teaching for a while and you're now moving them across from a previous curriculum onto the Abridge Academy curriculum, please, I would recommend using this placement test. It should only take about 10 minutes and it will tell you which level to start them at. It's relatively straightforward. Just make sure you put in your student's name on the first page because that's used for a lot of personalization throughout the slides. Then there's the usual kind of warm-up questions. And then you just go through and there's all these quiz questions that test your student's level. If you know they're beyond a certain point, you can also jump ahead to later sections in the test. So you can start, for example, at A2 level. If you know they're going to be roughly around that, you just want to know, are they level 4 or level 5? Or maybe they're going to be up to level 6, which is going to be coming at some point. Then you might want to start them at this higher level here. Any sections that you skip, just add 12 to their score to make up for any of the questions that you've skipped if you do that. I'm not going to go into detail. As I say, we're going to do this in a lot more depth next week in the trial class bootcamp. I've also got a video. If you're watching on YouTube, it should be on this channel. Click around somewhere to subscribe and check out that video, which goes through the placement test in a lot more detail. It's about, I think, 15 minutes long, the video, so it does take a while to go through, but lots of strategies and top tips there. But essentially, you answer questions, and then at the end, you match up their score, which you can find at the top here. Obviously, I haven't got anything right because we haven't answered the questions, but you check your score, and then you can match them up according to their score. It will tell you the Abridge Academy level, the CFR level, and the relevant Cambridge exam, as well as a link to the relevant trial class. Just realised this is tiny. I'm just zooming in to make it bigger. So once you've done this placement test, you use this table to match it up to the relevant level. And then from there, it will direct you to the specific trial class that they want to do. Let's say they got, I don't know, 10 questions correct. And by the way, if they've only got 10 right, and then they start making mistakes, you don't need to plough through the rest of the test because there's 36 questions in total, and there's nothing more demoralizing for a student than getting 20 more questions wrong. So once they start making mistakes, that's the point to end the test. You just jump straight to the results section by clicking on that tab, and then you can match it up here. So let's say they got 10 correct, you know they're going to be level 2, just click on level 2 trial, and it should take you straight to this level 2 trial class page. And again, looks very similar. If you're familiar with the Abridge Academy lesson slides, they all look the same sort of format. And you can then proceed with the trial class. These trial classes are designed to be around 15 minutes or so. So in total, your trial class is the 10 minutes test plus 15 minutes of like lesson slides. And these classes are really designed to be super interactive and engaging, get your students making progress and learning one really key thing. They're going to come away thinking they've learned something really great, they've really enjoyed your class, and there's a whole bunch of useful extra resources and things that go with these trial classes to really help convert free trial class students into actual paying students. Lots of resources to help you there. A lot of those are listed here in the downloads and links section. So there's feedback and learning plan templates, parents' guides, at the very end of the test, you've got some feedback for your students. So just jump to the very end. There's like a feedback section where you can rate your students according to the learning objectives, and they get a nice certificate and things at the end. So this kind of stuff is really great to have in your trial classes. Again, I'm just going to keep this short in today's session because we're going to go in a lot more detail on trial classes in the free bootcamp next week. If you're not signed up for the free bootcamp yet, the link is on the Abridge Academy blog page. So go to Abridge Academy, go to the blog, and you can find the link to sign up. Also, if you're on the email list, I'll be emailing around again with reminders about that trial class bootcamp next week. So do keep an eye out for that. Okay, that was a very quick overview of the trial classes. I'll have a quick check. Has anyone got any questions about getting their students placed at the correct level? Looks like we're all good so far, which is great to see. If you do have any questions, I know I'm powering through things relatively quickly today, but if you do have any questions at all, please do pop them in the chat and I can get to them as soon as I see the message. And that way we can make sure this is answering any questions and things that you have to help you get started. Okay, so let me look at my plan. What else do I want to make sure we've covered? We've very briefly looked at the placement test and the trial classes. We've gone through the dashboard and how to navigate everything. Okay, the next thing to have a look at then is the core curriculum structure. So as I was just saying earlier, from your member dashboard, the first section is called the step-by-step curriculum, and this is your core curriculum, goes step by step. At the moment, there's levels 1 through to 5 available, and there's also the phonics course, which is part of this core curriculum as well. And all you have to do to navigate to anywhere on the curriculum is you just click on the level that you want to go to. So let's say we want to go to level 1. And then if you scroll down, you'll find that each level is organized into 10 units. So there's 10 units per level. And each unit is organized into 6 lessons. So in total, each level has 60 lessons. You'll also notice that these units, they've got like a code next to the lessons. So if I zoom in a bit, you can see here, for example, 145 story trip to the beach. This lesson code at the beginning is really useful just to keep track of where your students are at. I use this and keep a note on it next to my student's name in my kind of calendar system to make sure I know what lesson they're on, rather than having to write out the whole lesson title. So the first number tells you what level it is. So this is level 1. The second number tells you the unit, so it's unit 4. And the last number, the third number, tells you the lesson within the unit, so it's lesson 5. So that's just an easy way to keep track using these lesson codes. If you find the lesson codes confusing, and some teachers get really mixed up with the numbers, just don't worry about it, it's fine. But it's just something I find helpful just to keep track of where students are at. Okay, what do I want to make sure I've covered? So yeah, we've got 10 units per level, 6 lessons per unit. You'll also notice as well that each of the units ends with like a story and then a review. So the lower level lessons, levels 1 through to 3, it's a story and then a review. In the higher level lessons, there's a reading lesson, which is not necessarily a story. It could also be non-fiction reading, slightly longer texts. And then there's a writing lesson where they're practicing writing and like creating something themselves. And then finally, there's the review lesson as well. There's always kind of some more review type content towards the end that's going to focus on implementing and practicing and producing language, particularly so spoken and written language, and then the review. Okay. How else? The other thing I should point out as well is on the left sidebar menu on any of the levels, you'll also find another way of navigating the lessons in the sidebar. So you can also use that if that's easier for you. Let's have a look at one of the lessons then. So let's go to this one here, 110.3, daily activities. So if you have a look at one of the lessons individually, you'll notice here that we've got the lesson slides are embedded into the page. So title at the top, quick introduction, you'll find the lesson slides here. Now in this particular lesson, we have both British and American English on one set of slides because there's no major difference in this case between the two dialects. But if, for example, it's a lesson where there's different word usage between British and American English, you'll find them just listed one under the other. So make sure you pick the correct form that is suitable for your students. And you'll see the little flags in the top left corner that will just tell you which particular lesson, like language, dialect you're looking at. The other thing, if you scroll down a bit further, I'll go into the lesson slides in more detail in a moment, but if you scroll down a bit further, you'll find the learning objectives. That's just really important to have a look at as a teacher, just so you know what you're going to be focusing on that lesson to make sure that you emphasize these key ideas. And there's also a downloads and links section. First, we have a lesson preview. You can send this to your students before the class so they can pre-learn new vocabulary, new grammar points. They can preview like the text, for example, there's going to be a reading exercise, things like that, which means that you can turn up to class better prepared to actually focus on practicing, actually using the language rather than just sort of memorizing stuff they could have learned at home. The lesson preview is really helpful for them to pre-learn key ideas before the class. There's also a workbook. This covers the whole unit, so each workbook is not just for one lesson, it's the whole unit's worth of content, so they don't have to worry about printing something individually every single class. These are PDFs, they can just download it, they can print it, or they can open it on, say, an iPad that's got like annotation tools or something, and they can write on the iPad if they prefer to do that. Most students prefer to print them. And those are great for homework. And you've also got the lesson flashcards. I find these useful to print out as a teacher as well. Flashcards can be helpful to have in class kind of as a little prop that you can hold up. And they're great for students to practice at home because they can sort of build up their deck of flashcards to practice, and in their spare time they can sit there and review the keywords, or perhaps their parents can sit down with them and review and quiz them on the keywords in their spare time. So those flashcards are super helpful as well. Now this lesson doesn't have this, but some of the lessons will also have links to supplementary materials like extra games or recommended videos or third-party resources and things they can have a look at depending on the topic of the lesson. The other thing you'll notice here, there's a little thing about the Abridge Academy curriculum. If you liked the lesson, do feel free to click write a review. Always really appreciate some reviews and feedback from teachers. And if you notice any mistakes or any comments on the lesson, if you scroll down underneath, you can find there's a comment section, and someone here has spotted there was a mistake, for example, and this was fixed. So if you've got any feedback or comments, or you spotted a typo or something like that, or you've got an extra resource you want to recommend that would go well with that particular lesson, you can just leave a comment at the bottom of the lesson page. It's a great place to leave that feedback. That means that the comment can easily be linked up with the lesson you were talking about. So constructive feedback or things you recommend, like changing on the slides, please pop them in the comments here so that I can easily find them and link them to the lesson that needs fixing. But yeah, those are usually not too common, don't worry. Very few mistakes, luckily, and we do make sure all the lessons are proofread and checked before they go up. Right, so that's just very briefly what's on and around the slides. Now we're going to zoom in and to actually look at the slides themselves. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Now, just because we're on this webinar system and therefore I need space for my face to appear and not block the slides, we're just going to zoom in a bit here. There is on the bottom right corner a full screen button. which is useful. Most teaching platforms will support this. So once you click it in full screen mode, it opens in full screen, and then it takes up all the space for the students to see. Whereas at the moment, because I'm using a sort of live streaming video platform rather than a proper teaching platform, it doesn't support the full screen mode. So I've just used 2 fingers on the mouse pad to zoom in on the page. That also works. So depending on your teaching platform and how exactly you're sharing the resources, whether it's screen sharing or in a co-browser, you might just need to just zoom in like this instead to make them full screen. Other useful slide tools that we've got on here, you'll see in the top right corner there's a pen tool, which is, again, relatively straightforward. You can choose a color, you can change the pen size, and then you can doodle on the screen. So that's helpful for circling things, simple annotations. If you've got a teaching platform that has its own annotation tools, those are probably easier to use, and your students can then use those too. So, for example, things like Zoom, you can annotate on top of the screen share. Those are also helpful things to use. In the bottom right corner, you'll find there's this full screen button. There's the option to show all the pages that make up the slide. So maybe you want to jump ahead or jump back or just a quick flick through what's included in this particular lesson. You can use that tool there. You can zoom in and zoom out on the slides. I don't find that very useful, but I guess if you want to zoom in on a particular bit of an image or something, that can be helpful. And then at the end here, you can see what slide number you're on and jump to other slides just by typing the number in the box and clicking enter. So if you want to go to slide 10, just type 10 in the box, click enter, and we've gone to slide 10. So that's just an easy way to navigate the lesson slides. One thing I do want to point out on this very first page before we continue is please make sure you put your student's name and your teacher's name in this box in the bottom left corner here. You see the student's name and the teacher's name. Not that I have favourites, but this is my one of my students, Nancy, and then my name is Katie, so you can put those details here. This is used for personalisation throughout the lesson. So you'll often find that the lesson activity will be greeting your student by name, or will be asking them a question. It will use their name in the question. So please make sure you've written their name in on this first slide for that personalisation to work. Okay, and then you can just click next and go through the slides. So here's an example of that personalisation. You'll see that Amy, our character Amy here, is saying, hello Nancy. It says just underneath my face here. So it's used the student's name, and then Tom is greeting the teacher, hello Katie. Now, most of the slides, there's a few warm-up type things at the beginning. Because this is a level 1 lesson, it's very basic. There's a little song they can sing. And just behind my face here, let me move my face. Just above me here, there's a little link to YouTube. There's a little video you can pop up to play the song. But there's a little song and there's little greeting questions. Level 1 is very basic, just how are you? And you can click, okay, I'm happy. How's the weather? It's sunny. Okay, keep it nice and simple. With the higher level lessons, there's slightly more complicated discussion, kind of warm-up questions here. And there's also some that link more into the topics of the lesson, or sort of wider discussion points that sort of warm them up to the main topic. But because this is level 1, it's nice and simple. And then there's always a review slide. So this reviews what they did in the previous lesson. The previous lesson, they learnt about daily activities. So now they need to match up here the words to the pictures. And this is just reviewing the vocabulary from last time, which they're going to use again in this lesson. So it's important to review beforehand. Now, this is a great time just to point out these built-in rewards. I'm not sure if you noticed, my face is hiding it. Let me move my face. Okay, so once we answer the questions correctly, you'll see this little trophy reward popped up. So you'll see these throughout the Abridge Academy lessons when you answer questions, whether it's a matching activity or quiz, like fill in the blanks kind of exercise, something like that. These little trophies pop up all the time, which are a great kind of built-in reward system to celebrate your students' achievements throughout the class. If you're using a teaching platform like Koala Go, ClassIn, I think most teaching platforms have some kind of reward system, like you can give stars, you can give trophies, you can do confetti or whatever. You can use these as kind of reminders to yourself to then award a star on your teaching platform. So depending on what your teaching platform features have, you can combine those as well. Here's another kind of interactive activity. Again, it's reviewing what they've learned earlier on in this unit. They were learning about time. And you see you can click and move the hands and then practice saying the time. Again, it's just reviewing some of the key ideas they've learned earlier in the unit. You'll see the learning objectives, and then we get into the main content of the lesson. I'm not going to go through everything in loads of detail. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of some of the key content you'll find and some top tips and ideas. If you've got any questions about any of this, please do pop it in the chat and I'll be happy to answer any questions or give you some more detailed feedback. So first we've got a vocabulary slide. Most of the lessons have got some new words. Now, depending on whether it's a vocab focus lesson or just a lesson that's focused on something else, there's a few incidental words that they're learning. There may be more or fewer sort of vocab words here, but usually there's 2 or 3 per slide, and there might be maximum 10 in a lesson. Usually it's closer to 5, depending on the level and the topic. So there'll be some new words here. You'll notice that there's British and American flags underneath the words. So you can click on these to play the audio that reads out this word to them, which is a good way of practicing different pronunciation. This is also available in the lesson previews. So if you send your students the lesson previews before class, they can pre-learn the correct pronunciation to make sure they're not sort of learning mistakes before they get started. So on these vocab slides, you can quiz them on the new words, encourage them to say a sentence with the new words. You can perhaps ask them to describe more detail about what's happening in the images, all kinds of things like that. Working on pronunciation, you can perhaps break down the words, highlight different things, like homework. Here's a nice sort of homework. There's 2 syllables, 2 parts of this word, and you can separate that out and talk about, what does homework mean? Well, it's work that you do at home. What's she doing? She's doing homework. She's not writing homework, she's doing homework. In English, we use the word do to go with homework, things like that. So mention some of those co-locating words. You also notice there's different colours being used on the screen here. So verbs, we use blue to highlight verbs. Nouns, we use this kind of pink-red kind of colour. So this is used throughout the lessons to kind of subtly teach parts of speech. Depending on your students' level and their understanding of words like noun and verb and so on, you may not want to sort of use those terminology directly, but it's a way for them to sort of gently pick it up. Like, oh, blue words always go in this position in a sentence. Red words always go here. Orange words, that's adjectives, always go here. They start to kind of get an idea visually of how the words are used in sentences. So that's what that colour coding is intended to do. The same colour coding system is used on the flashcards as well. So if you give your students a flashcard to print out, they'll see those same colour coding things to go with the words. So it all helps to reinforce some of those core grammatical ideas without it feeling like you're learning grammar in every single class. As students progress to higher levels, they'll start to understand a bit more, what the word verb actually means and the idea of conjugating verbs and things like that. And that's when you might want to actually start putting the technical grammatical terms to this terminology. But yeah, the colour coding is also worth bearing in mind. Another thing I do want to quickly say before we move on is if you're ever not sure what to do on a lesson slide, the top left corner here, let me zoom in, top left corner, you'll see this little I button or this little question mark thing. Click on the question mark and it'll pop up with some teacher tips and suggestions on what to do. So if you're ever not sure what to do on a lesson slide, click on that question mark in the top left corner and there's some suggestions on how to teach using this slide. There's sometimes also some suggested extension activities or discussion questions, things like that, so have a look at this. I recommend previewing that before you start the class because otherwise your students will see the pop-up too. Okay, let's move on. So there's a few other kinds of activities here. This is just some quick like drag and drop things, reviewing those new words. So it's just checking their understanding. Again, a good opportunity to start practicing making sentences with it, that kind of thing. And when I got these wrong, I can English honest. Here we go. And when they got it correct, again, that automated trophy reward pops up. And another kind of similar one, here we've got a flip cards activity. You'll see this kind of pulsing hand in the corner. This is an indication that something you can click on the slides. So here we can click on the images to reveal the correct word. So you're going to ask the student, what does this word mean? And then you click on it to reveal the correct answer. What sort of grammar exercises? You notice here that there's a sort of short dialogue so they can kind of listen. There's audio that they can play. You can analyze the kind of word order and things in the sentences. And the key thing that's going to link into today's grammar point is the use of the word at to indicate a specific time. I wake up at 6 o'clock. It's not on 6 o'clock or in 6 o'clock, it's at 6 o'clock. So you can use this as an opportunity to sort of inductively sort of teach this idea, ask the student to pick out the key word and what is it being used for. It's being used to tell the time, look at the picture, how does that link to it, that kind of thing. And then there's some practice exercises. This is quite a nice example of a drop-down quiz. Again, I'm just using this to kind of give you a quick idea of the kind of activities that are included. So we're going to go through this quite quickly. But here we can see we've got I something up at 7 o'clock. When I wake up, that's one of the new words. I eat breakfast. I go to school. I do homework. I sleep at 10 o'clock. So we see it's practicing here the key verbs that are used for the different activities. And then you can check their answers and the little trophy pops up if they got them correct. So little quizzes and things like that are built into the lessons. And I just realised my face is covering it again. Let's move my face over here. Okay. Another example of these kind of quizzes, and this is a slightly different sort of format to the quizzes. This one here is now focusing on that word at being used for a specific time. So they've got to pick the correct answer. Ooh. Oh wait, oh gosh, I was asleep. Oh wait, up. It's focusing on co-locating words here. So we've got at, up, in, on, these kind of words. So you can answer the quiz as you go through. I eat lunch at 12 o'clock. Some of this is reviewing what they've done earlier on in the unit, by the way. If you're thinking, oh, this doesn't quite link into this particular lesson, well, it's using the grammar points of this lesson, which is at a specific time, in the context of everything else they've been learning throughout that particular unit. So you just answer the quiz questions, do a little bit more practice. And kids really love these. I know it's sort of just a simple quiz, but kids love the gamified sort of element here that you've got. And they kind of answering the questions. It pops up, there's a little sound effect. I'm not sure the sound effect is coming through on the video here, but there's a little sound effect when they get the answer correct. There's bright, colourful images and things like that kids enjoy seeing. And there we go. And the next example, this is quite a good lesson slide actually, look at all the different kind of interactive activities. Here we've got an example of a sort of spinny wheel thingy-majig. I'm not sure what to call this, spinny thing. And this is more where you can start having that more open-ended speaking practice. So there's a question at the top here, what time does he or she something? So what time does he sleep? And they can look at the picture and try and make a sentence. He sleeps at 10 o'clock. And then you click the wheel again and it will reveal a different scenario. She plays sports at 3 o'clock. And depending on the level of your students, obviously you can extend a little bit on this. What sport is she playing? She's playing tennis. Who's she playing with? She's playing with her friend. Where's she playing? She's playing at the park. She plays tennis with her friend at the park at 3 o'clock. I sort of practice extending sentences, adding more details, things like that, depending on the levels of your student. Okay. Now we've got an example of a listening exercise. You can play the audio and it's also broken down into shorter segments for you to then review it with the students. So you play the audio and then use that to drag and drop the clocks into the correct place. Off the top of my head, I can't remember which clocks go where, so we're going to randomly guess and hope these end up correct. Probably has pizza for dinner, wakes up. I think it's something like that. Nope, I've done something wrong. Anyway, you drag these in the correct order and it will appear with a trophy when you get it correct. But it's like a listening exercise for the students to listen and understand. And then again, more of an open-ended practice activity here. Students now can describe their day. They can draw on the clocks what time. What time do you get up? I get up at, 5 o'clock. I eat breakfast at 6 o'clock. Whatever. And they can draw on the screen. They can describe their day. They can practice making those more extended sentences. You can ask them follow-up questions, all of that to get discussion going. And then we always end with a review. So the review slides, usually we're going to focus here because it's quite a low-level lesson. The key thing is a few keywords and a key sort of grammatical point here. So we're going to match up the keywords again to sleep, homework, to wake up, and then you can review the key grammar points. The grammar points you can click on to make them full screen and open them up like this to go through in more detail. Get the student to make their own sentences, review the key ideas however you wish. And then we move on to our feedback slides. Now, this is something that teachers really love about the Abridge Academy lessons. We've been rolling these out over the past year now, and they've had the most amazing feedback on these feedback slides. It's a great way to sort of wrap up the lesson with a student. You're giving the student direct feedback on what they did well. You're rating them against the specific learning objectives. And then at the end, all you had to do is take a screenshot of this slide and send it through to the parents, and that's your feedback automatically sorted for you. So it makes it nice and quick and easy to get that post-class feedback sorted without spending ages writing massive long essays trying to explain to the parent what you did in class and what they did well. And particularly if you're teaching classes one after the other, like quite a few classes in a row, it's very easy to forget what happened in the class itself. So having this slide as a quick summary of the key things, and you can make some notes and send it through to the parents straight away. Literally, you can do this in 2 minutes at the end of the lesson, saves you so much time and automatically sorts out the feedback. So for each of these learning objectives, you just click to give them a star rating. There's out of 3, and it just rotates around. So if you make a mistake, just keep clicking and it'll go back to 0 again. So let's say they did really well at learning the new words. They were pretty good at the grammar point, but they sometimes got a bit mixed up. So we're just going to give them 2 stars here. And their speaking skills, again, they need a bit more practice, but they're getting there. So you can rate them against those learning objectives. and sort of make a comment on what you're going to work on in the future. Try and give a bit more detail. Obviously, I've just done this about 10 seconds, but you can say, you did great at speaking in full sentences, blah, blah, blah. Next time, we're going to work a bit more on using grammar correctly, or next time, we're going to work more on extending those sentences to make them more detailed, whatever. So you can give that kind of specific feedback here, and then you just take a screenshot, send it through to the parents. You'll notice on this slide, there's a few things that are automatically being filled out already for us. So it's already got the student's name. It took that off the first slide when you put their name in. It's automatically put the date. It's got the details of the lesson. So my head's covering this, but it's on the top here. It's saying that level 1, unit 10, lesson 3. It's got your teacher's name automatically filled in, and it's got all those learning objectives there. So it's got everything automatically done for you without you having to spend ages writing all this out again for parents. Yeah, and then that's it. That's the end of one of those lessons. Okay, I know I went through that about a million miles an hour, but I hope it gives you a bit of an insight into some of the interactive activities and how to teach them with your students, and some top tips there on how to use the lesson slides and things like that. I'm not seeing any questions coming through, but if you have got any questions, please do let me know and I'll be happy to help with those. Let me go back to my webinar plan and see if there's anything I've missed. Okay, we've talked about all the slides. Make sure you put your name on the first slide, the annotation tools, interactivity, the feedback, all of that. Excellent. Okay. The last thing to have a look at then is the expansion courses. If anyone's not got any questions on this, looking good, that's great. The last thing to have a quick look at are the expansion courses and some top tips and things on how to teach with these. I did briefly introduce them at the beginning of today's webinar, but in case you missed that, I'm going to give you a quick summary again now. So the expansion courses are designed to provide your students with additional practice, either focusing on specific English skills or exploring their wider interests. And they also go up to much higher levels than you'll find in the core curriculum. And there's a wide range of different ways that teachers use these, kind of 4 key use cases in particular. First, you can use them just for supplementary lessons, extra practice beyond your core curriculum class. Like maybe they need extra focus on a particular grammar point, or they want some extra reading practice. That could be really great to have a look at here. Another key use case, the second example, would be fun lessons for your students that are sort of seasonal or themed on a specific topic. So the seasonal celebrations lessons, lots of fun stuff, like Halloween is coming up, then there's going to be things themed around like Christmas, for example, and then there's Chinese New Year, all those kind of seasonal events that happen throughout the year. We've got some great lessons themed on those for you to have a look at. You can also use them as standalone short courses or summer camp programs, or you can use them on platforms like OutSchool, for example, where you can sell like a short series of lessons. That can be really popular, and you might find that, if I pick out some more examples, Space Explorers is a really fun one to do as a sort of short course like that. Same with the Travel Agent one. And if you look at the advanced courses, pretty much all of these can also work as short courses as well. And the final thing are more specialized ongoing courses for advanced students. And for that one in particular, I would emphasize like the debating classes. There's a lot of lessons there. There's over 30 lessons in the debating course. And the English news lessons are also really good for more reading focus, like reading comprehension and discussion kind of practice. So those can be good if you want to specialize in a particular niche area and provide your students with ongoing classes on that. You'll notice that as I flick through, these courses are organized into beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels. Those roughly correspond to the CFR framework. So beginner is A1 to A2, intermediate B1 or so, advanced is about B2 to C1. So that gives you an idea of roughly where they line up with. Do have a look at the lessons yourself, of course, before teaching with a student, just to make sure it's suitable for that particular student. And there's more detail on the specific lesson pages as well. Does anyone have any particular requests of which course they might want to have a quick look at, and in which case we can go into that in more detail? If not, I'm not seeing any questions in the comments specific about the courses. So if we just have a look again I'm going to pick on debating because I absolutely love debating, and it's one that I teach a lot this course with my students. So let's have a look at the debating course. You just click through and it takes you to the course overview page. My face over here again. There we go. And the course overview page has got some information about the debating course. What kind of format they're designed for. Like this one, it says 45 to 55-minute lessons. The core lessons, by the way, are usually 25-minute lessons. So these advanced courses, some of them are a bit longer. Do check that and make sure they're suitable for your class format. They're interactive. There's worksheets that are included. It says what they're going to focus on, which is particularly the speaking focus for the debating class. It says what level they're suitable for. So that kind of information is all here on the overview page. And then there's links to the curriculum structure. I'm actually planning on revamping this page a bit for the debating one in particular, because in reality, you do not have to follow these in any particular order. They're kind of roughly organized according to the difficulty of the debating skill. So they're not, when it says beginner, intermediate, advanced, these are all for advanced ESL students. But depending on how good they are at debating, the beginners ones introduces very basic debating skills, like explaining your argument, backing it up with evidence, using modal verbs, conditional sentences, things like that. Whereas if you look at advanced, it's like how to use statistics or how to use rhetorical questions to make your arguments stronger. So yeah, it's more organized by debating skill rather than by ESL skill on this particular course. But I am thinking of redeveloping this page a bit and having a better organization of things, probably just like a collection you can search or something rather than this, because it doesn't have to be done in a particular order. Anyway, so there's lots of different lessons there you can have a look at. I'm not sure I should pick out one in particular. Which one did I teach recently? We had a lot of fun with space exploration. We have a look at that. So each of these debating lessons, again, the format is kind of the same slides as you've seen on the core lessons, right? You've got full screen, you can show the pages that make it up. There's a drawing things you can doodle on the slides. So it's the same interactive tools as you have in the main core curriculum lessons. And then underneath the lessons, you'll find the learning objectives again, and then downloads and links. In this case, for the debating lessons, there's a worksheet, which kind of consolidates the key ideas that they're learning in class. Most of my students actually find this useful to have printed in the class itself, and they do the worksheet during the lesson time. Particularly if you're teaching a group class, that way the students can be working on the worksheet and they can be discussing things with their classmates and sharing ideas and that kind of thing. The worksheets are a great place for them to note down some of those key ideas because of the way they're laid out. There's also a vocab list. I recommend sending this to students before the first class. This vocab list has like a list of the new words and definitions, and it's also got a gap for them to fill it out with a translation into their native language. The idea is that before the class, they can pre-learn those new words. They can look it up if they're not familiar with the word. They can practice making a sentence with the new word. And then when they come to class, they don't need to focus on learning vocabulary. They can focus on actual speaking practice. If we have a look at these lesson slides, we always start with some kind of warm-up questions. Again, this is debating, so very big speaking focus here. So the warm-up questions here is about space exploration, of course, and link this into them and their own country. For example, it has your country sent people to space. Oops, didn't mean to move on. So ask them a bit more detail about their own. What on earth happened there? I think I jumped about 10 slides. I was swiping on the screen by accident. Oops. So has your country sent people into space before? Ask them to share their own insights. I recommend previewing these questions and looking up this stuff as well. So depending on where your students are from, make sure you've Googled their country beforehand and checked, because then you can show your amazing knowledge and say, oh yes, I do actually know that your country has been to space. They went to space in this date and this many people, and you went to the moon or whatever. So look up this kind of stuff. Make sure you're prepared before the class. Then we've got some new words and vocabulary. So something orbiting a planet. This is reviewing what they did in that vocab list. Something orbiting a planet, that's going to be a satellite. Substance that supplies energy, well, that's fuel. A large body in space that orbits a star is a planet. The action of exploring a new area, that's exploration. And then scientific study is research. So again, similar to what you've seen in the core slides, it's just laid out in different format, different theme to the slides, but it's matching up the new words with the definitions and a little built-in reward thing. But the vocab section is pretty short. We just have like matching activity and then a drop-down quiz, which is just checking their kind of understanding of things. Oops, what have I done here? There we go. So they can fill out the quiz. This quiz, you notice that the example sentences link into the debate topic. So we're already getting into the main focus of today's class, which is all about space exploration and should the government spend money on space exploration. So after you've done this, you can then ask the students to say that each of these points, are they for or against space exploration? Like the first one here is for, like as a benefit of satellites, right? But the second one here, space rockets require a lot of fuel, it's bad for the environment, that's a negative. That's against space exploration. So you can use that just as a quick way of rating and sort of collecting together some of those arguments and initial ideas before you jump into the actual debate itself, which is quite useful to have a look at. Okay, what else is worth here? Some more words that kind of come up here. This was quite a lot of vocab actually in this particular lesson because space has got a lot of kind of interesting terminology. And then we start talking a bit more about the wider impacts, collecting together some more ideas again before we jump into the debate. they're going to talk about what the uses of satellites, the use for satellite TV, the use for analysing the Earth, GPS, looking at weather, photographs of space, all this kind of stuff. There's more discussion points here, discussion questions. Talking more about the benefits of space travel, and you can click on each of these to find more details. There's lots of things you can click on and explore more in depth if you want to, or you can just skim through them quite quickly depending on how much time you have in the class and how much your students would like to talk about it. Now we're going to look at some of the negatives. Well, we've seen some positive things. What's the negative of space exploration? Well, actually, you can't necessarily control what the technology is going to be used for afterwards. So, for example, a lot of technology that's used for building satellites and creating space rockets was also then used for weapons development, for example. So that's an interesting point to bring up and discuss with your students. Should we be developing this technology in the first place if it could be used for evil? What's the impact of that? Some data to analyze here. I don't remember what this lesson focused on. Categorizing counter arguments. Okay, that's why it's just a short bit here looking at some data and some facts. And then also things for them to research. How much does their country spend on space exploration? Talking about comparing different countries here, like the US spends so much more money on space exploration than pretty much any other country, which is quite interesting to look at. So that's when we start drawing out some of the initial ideas. Then we get to learning some kind of debating skill. This one is looking at counter arguments. It's quite a beginner's level debating lesson. So they're learning how to use although, however, actually, on the one hand, on the other hand, I disagree because, these kind of phrases and expressions. And then another drop-down quiz to practice it. And then we move on to categorizing these arguments. Okay, something about space exploration is not a waste of money, and talking about the future, well, it can help us live on other planets. Or the counter argument is that it's expensive. We can spend that on other scientific research. So you can start to categorize and organize the arguments. This links into some of the stuff that's on the worksheet, so they could be noting down some of these arguments for and against on their worksheet as they go. And then finally, we get to that big debate at the end. So this particular debate motion is, this house believes that space exploration is a waste of government money. Do you agree or disagree? Right? The students then, if you're teaching a group class, get them to organize into groups. It's quite a good idea, if you can, to try and put them into groups that are the opposite to what they originally expressed at the beginning. One of the warm-up questions at the beginning kind of drew out those ideas. So keep a note of what they thought at the beginning, and at the end, try and get them to sort of play the opposite side of the argument to get them to think about different points of view. It's quite an effective way of getting them to think a bit more widely around the topic. Sometimes I find students will just fixate on one particular opinion. So by forcing them to kind of take the other perspective, it's a good way to get them thinking a bit more. There's also little draw out things on the side here, by the way. They need some extra prompts. These were the kind of key sentence structures that we learned in today's class, so you can pull those out as a useful thing for your students to refer to. Yeah, put them into groups, get them to discuss and debate this. If it's a one-on-one class, it can just be you against the student, that's fine. I often find it helpful as well to jump across to the whiteboard on my teaching platform, and then you can make notes for and against and organise it a bit more on the whiteboard, write out the sentences that they're saying, see if they can improve things by using these sentence structures that we've learned here. Can they add in although or however? Have they used those words correctly? Pick out some of that as you go. Yeah, and then that's the end. Sometimes there are also some extension questions afterwards, like for follow-on debates, depending on like how long the rest of the lesson was, as to whether there's sort of time to fill out a bit more. Whew, that was very quick. I thought it'd be useful to run through and give some examples and ideas of how these lessons work and how I like to teach them. I might do another webinar another time with much more detail on teaching debating and some of this stuff, because it's one of my favourite things to teach. It works really well with advanced students who want to develop those more advanced speaking skills. It gets them using grammar and things, but in context. So you notice in this lesson we did learn like how to use although, however, on the other hand, these kind of phrases, but it didn't feel like a grammar lesson. Right? They were practicing immediately speaking and putting it into context, putting it into practice in an interesting context that is a topic they're interested in. So yeah, I really love debating. I'm definitely going to do a bit more training on that, I think, some other time. Whew, okay, I've talked a lot here. Let's have a look at some of the other questions. Oh, we've got a question here from Valerie. Will students' progress show for the next lesson? Short answer is no. And we don't store any student data within Abridge Academy. So Abridge Academy is only accessed by teachers. As a teacher, you can load up the lessons either by screen sharing or opening in the co-browser in your teaching platform. You do put in your student's name at the beginning on some of the lesson slides. That's used for some of the personalization throughout the lesson. But that data is not being stored in the Abridge Academy systems at all longer term. It's just like temporarily stored actually within your browser. So as soon as you refresh the page, it's gone. So once you refresh the page or you go to a different page, it will be gone. So when you come back, it's lost. That's just as partly student data protection, all that kind of stuff. In terms of tracking their progress, I would recommend the feedback slides. I'm not sure if you saw that if you were there earlier when we looked at that for the core curriculum. Take a screenshot of the feedback slide so you've got a record of how they did in each lesson and send it through to the parents. I usually use, most of my students are Chinese, so we're using WeChat for general communications. So I just send that screenshot in the WeChat sort of chat thread, which means that when it comes to the next lesson, I just have a quick look at that chat thread. What was the last thing I sent? Oh, it was that feedback slide. I can pull it up and have a look at it immediately. Another thing you might want to do is if your teaching platform's got its own built-in student progress tracking thing, like I think ClassIn, I believe, has that set up. You could put the feedback and kind of record of what you did in the lesson within that. Make a note, of course, of which lesson you did. That's the main thing to keep track of as well. Or you can just have a Google Doc or Google spreadsheet or something like that to keep track of these things. But yeah, sorry. Short answer is no, we don't keep track of any student progress because students don't have logins and we don't collect or store that data. I hope that answers the question. Cool. Any other questions on that? I think otherwise I did do a very brief but rushed probably overview of some of the key ideas. I hope that gave you a bit of an insight into what you can do with the lessons, because there's a lot of stuff in Abridge Academy. I see a lot of teachers, they focus just on the core curriculum, but I do recommend having a look at some of these expansion courses and things as well, because there's a lot of stuff here that you might be missing out on. Okay, any other questions? Doesn't look like it, which is good. Cool. Another thing I'm just going to mention before we wrap things up, if you missed earlier on what we did earlier on in today's session, you can of course watch back this replay, or what you can do is have a look at the teacher training section on the Abridge Academy website. So if you go to the homepage, at the very top here it says teacher training. Under teacher training, you'll find one that says teaching with Abridge Academy, and the curriculum tutorials here. This is a whole series of videos. You'll find them organized. I think my face is covering them. No, it's not. Okay. On the left-hand sidebar here, you find it organized into a whole series of short videos that show you like how to use the slide tools, for example. There's a video. Each video is like maybe 3 minutes. They're nice, short, simple videos, and explains exactly how to do that particular thing. So if you're ever unsure what to do have a look at these curriculum tutorials. There's lots of top tips here on how to teach with the Abridge Academy curriculum. How to use the lesson slides, how to manage your account, how to sort out supplementary materials, all this other stuff. So do have a look at the teacher training section. It's also under curriculum tutorials. Lots of advice here if there's anything that you've missed today. And of course, if you ever have any questions or anything you're not sure about, you can also send an email anytime. I'm always happy to help with things. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap things up here then. So thank you so much everyone for joining us. I hope you found today's session helpful. And please do enjoy the lessons with your students. If you're on the free tier, check out all those free resources, see that it's a good fit for your students. Always start, as I said before, with the placement test, and the trial classes is an excellent starting point to get your students at the right level and using the lessons and using all the interactive tools and stuff. That's what those placement tests and trial classes are designed to help with. That's probably the most important starting point. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you found this session helpful, and I'm sure I'll see you again in another video soon.